Let's have a moment of silence. May her soul rest in eternal peace.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much, President. Good morning, everyone on the call. Just not tired to remind us that suddenly our registration has already been, slotted in and closed for that district conference in Bahara at Las Vegas. So as you check out the rooms and you plan to head there and how you'll travel, as the 98th Joint District Conference Souvenir Magazine, we are saying suddenly we haven't received a project write-up of what Daybreak has done with a huge bias. I expected because
I'm getting echo.
there is echo.
No, he was very clear from our side.
Okay, thank you very much. We were saying that we are asking clubs to showcase their projects and what they have done throughout the year, and for the clubs, because the magazine is fully sponsored, but I mean self-sponsored. So we're asking clubs to just part off with just 200,000, just 200,000. And suddenly, for example, clubs that have gone into a 7x7, I think if you distribute that 200,000 to yourselves as clubs, suddenly every club will part off with a 30K and have that project showcased. And why is it very important to showcase that? The Joint Souvenir Magazine will have an interface of over 5,000 Rotarians and road tractors, but not adding in even the business owners who are partly Rotarians and who run, different organizations that could, at the end of the day, come in as your sponsors, as your partners. And we are giving it a very, very huge interface also, even to the global community. So if you have any business you need to advertise, kindly reach out to us. Our deadlines are getting close. We need to get into the print house as early as first week of April. So please kindly submit in your information as the clubs. And most importantly is looking forward to seeing Bahara celebrate the Imagine Rotary year, both as District 9213 and 9214. Thank you very much, President.
Thank you very much, CP Sam, for that amazing piece of information. CMP Frederick, your hand was up.
Thank you very much, amazing President Edward. I would like to begin by appreciating each and every single one of you, friends and fellow Rotarians, and all friends of Rotary, for your continuous engagement in developing this country. I would like to place a reminder that we have done tremendously well. It is only fair that we participate in the DCA Awards that only have 8 days to come to a close, and in particular, the BELEP Awards. Fellow Rotarians, clubs, as of yesterday, 101 of the 106 clubs have participated in BELEP. So please put in your applications for the awards. We want to recognize, we want to celebrate, and we like to appreciate people that have done outstandingly well. So please remember to submit for the DC Awards before the end of this very Rotary year. Thank you very much, amazing President Edward, once again.
Thank you, CMP Frederick. PG Frederick, please talk to Rotary.
Mr. President, I was a little bit taken aback by the information that the Rotarian David Sunrise has given. that Rotarian Elizabeth was an ardent supporter of the Rotary Club of Kampala Daybreak from its infancy. And there were moments when her and others like Rotarian Henry Rugamba would vehemently support the meetings, even when the members were so low. So I'm really saddened to recall this history. I don't know how else Daybreak will mourn her, but she was a member of Daybreak from the very start.
Thank you for sharing that piece of information on our departed Rotarian. Indeed, that's a challenge to us as Daybreakers. I'm sure we should be able to do something in recognition of ardent support in our infancy. Thank you. Friends, at this juncture, I would like to call upon Rotarian Wilberforce Amanya to introduce our guest speaker, who is already in the house. Rotarian Amanya.
Thank you, amazing President Edward. I hope I'm audible and clear.
Yes, you are.
Thank you. Good morning, Rotarians and friends of Rotary. This morning, welcome to Kampala Daybreak. It is my singular honor and pressure to introduce an amazing lady that is our guest speaker this morning. A well-read and professionally grounded, wonderful lady. She is a lawyer, an advocate, commissioner of oath, and a chartered mediator. She has a bachelor's degree in law, a diploma in legal practice, and an MBA in management. Professionally, her experience cuts across both private and government enterprises in areas of public relations, energy, oil and gas, company secretarial practice, labor. She combines a solid corporate legal background with a well-developed understanding of both commercial and operational drivers of business. She's a governance expert who trains boards in governance under the Institute of Corporate Governance. This lady, amazingly, she has served on various boards. For example, Zamara Retirement Fund, where she's a registered trustee, Water FC, Future Investments Group, East African Young Water Professionals, Uganda Law Society, to mention but a few. She's currently the vice chairperson of the Advisory Council of Efficacy, Methodology, and African Policy Think Tank. She's a member of various organizations, professional organizations like ICGU, FIDA, IBA, PRAU, URS, and EALS. She's a great negotiator. She has negotiated multi-million contracts to a tune of over 200 million euros. This amazing lady has achieved awards and recognitions because of her profession during her professional life. She won a recognition award by the Institute of Corporate Governance of Uganda for her role as a quality assurance expert. She attained the rank of senior counsel in 2022. She was awarded the French-German RAC Peace and Reconciliation Award in 2021 for her efforts towards fighting for the rule of law in Uganda. She was awarded as one of Africa's top 50 leaders by the African Law Tech Festival in 2020. She also won the Hague Institute for Innovations in Law 2018 Talent Watch Award. She is a 2 times awardee of 40 under 40 by New Vision for 2018 and 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, please receive Senior Counsel Fiona Nabasawol, President Emeritus, Uganda Law Society, and CEO Leads. Friends of Rotary, please receive. It is at this time, Fiona, that you can unmute and unpack to the Rotarians. You have our ears and our hearts. Thank you, amazing President Rotarian Edward, once again.
Thank you so much. It's been such an honor being introduced by you. I want to say thank you so much to Daybreak, Kampala Daybreak. I want to also recognize my family led by President Marion from RC Chiwatule. I'm really excited to be here. Today is an interesting day, and may the soul of our sister rest in eternal peace. I was invited to speak about corporate governance and stewardship. I bring you greetings from the League of East African Directors. And I think Rotary International is one of the most subscribed institutions by lead members. So I feel like my two families are coming together this morning. Admin is sharing my presentation, I think. Am I allowed to share my screen?
You are now able to share.
Okay. It still says I cannot share. Still says I cannot share.
You should be able. Let me just give you an extra level of bright.
Okay, thank you. Now it's good, yes.
Wonderful.
I want to share documents. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. I hope you can all see my screen now.
Yes, I can see
it's
your
very
screen.
clear.
Okay, thank you very much. So today I'm really providing a hypothesis here, or I don't know what you'd call it, the scientists in the room, that corporate governance is a must for excellent stewardship in Rotary International. And today I'll just go through a brief overview of the relationship between the law, stewardship, which I think in Rotary International we practice, and corporate governance. We will also look at what are the duties of directors, because the League of East African Directors, where I work, we aim at empowering directors and ensuring that organizations have great stewards in directors. We'll also review some of the salient governance provisions of the law and look at contemporary trends on what happens if you do not follow the law under corporate governance. So stewardship is careful oversight in a brief manner, and it means that the Rotary Foundation or the members or the clubs use their resources to maximize value for the donors. The donors are we, the members. If we regard ourselves as stewards, then we need to acquaint ourselves with corporate governance, because therein lies the key to excellent stewardship. I'm talking about RI, but I also want us to remember that in our institutions, we have shareholders, we have donors, we have people that have invested their capital, and we need to ensure that we work in their best interests. So what is the relationship between the law and corporate governance? Corporate governance at first, in the beginning, used to be one of those things that you aspire to be, one of those altruistic characteristics for corporations and leaders. But as we have descended into our state of irresponsible humanity, it has now become the law. And statutory legislation, as I speak, is the seedbed, it's the foundation of corporate governance. Laws establish usually general mandatory minimum standards to be met. But if you remember in the Bible, when Jesus came, he said, I didn't come to remove the law, but to emphasize it. And he set a higher standard when he said, for instance, if the law says do not commit adultery, I'm coming to say do not think about it. So as humankind went on, development, civilization, industrialization, capitalism, people learned very clever ways to do very illegal things that were very hard to hold them accountable for. So corporate governance is that thing that has come to raise the standard of stewardship, to say that it is not enough for you to say you didn't steal the money, but you should not misallocate the money. So we feel that corporate governance is like the spirit of the law. So it focuses on articulating good or best practices and sets out norms to which corporations should aspire. The regulatory framework, for instance, that would govern Rotary International or different organizations of our nature, the Constitution of Uganda, which is our, what we call the grand norm, our basis for the law, the Companies Act and other legislations per sector. You find that if, for instance, the Rotary Club of Washington, D.C. gives us their money, there's laws that govern them that might also affect us. Now, some of the organizations like Rotary or even your own organization will have laws and statutes that govern it, that establish it. So corporate governance does not operate outside the law. It is the one gluing factor that puts all the laws together and ensures that you are fully compliant with the law. So I've just put some examples there. I will share this PowerPoint for those that are interested. I know that we have a very short time, so I want to be sensitive of time. But when we look at the definitions of corporate governance, I've gotten you three. The International Finance Corporation talks about it being a mechanism through which boards and directors are able to direct, monitor, and supervise the conduct and operations of the corporation and its management in a way that ensures appropriate levels of authority, accountability, and stewardship. Not to mention leadership, direction, and control. Those are very important words: leadership, direction, control. But remember, stewardship and accountability are also very, very key. International Association of Insurance Supervisors, the insurance sector is a highly regulated sector. It states that corporate governance is the means by which members of the board and senior management are held accountable and responsible for their actions. And the Institute of Corporate Governance Uganda defines corporate governance as the system by which corporations are directed, controlled, and held to account. So the question is to you personally, if you're practicing corporate governance, is: are you accountable? Are you practicing self-control? Are you are you ensuring that you are a good steward? Are you exercising your authority properly? And the rationale basically is that it secures an effective operation of a company in the interest of all stakeholders. It provides assurance that management is acting in the best interest of the stakeholders. And it also shows that where there is limited resources and probably limited time within which to use these resources, we are trying to ensure that they're used to the best of the ability of the directors and the leaders. Down there is a statement that talks about there's very little evidence to link business success with corporate governance. I always like to boast that I work in an institution. I ended my time there last year, but I worked in an institution called National Water and Sewerage Corporation up to end of last year. And National Water and Sewerage Corporation in 1993 was on the floor of Parliament to be divested. It was a loss-making institution. It was, there was a lot going wrong, and it was supposed to be for divestiture. However, something happened, and I always tell people that in 2007, from 2007 up to now, National Water has become a leading water utility in the world, which used to be our vision. We have awards. The MD is now, I think, the head of the vice president of the International Water Association. We've been recognized. We are AAA certified. For me, that speaks to a success story that came out of the mud, literally. But the most interesting thing I want to present to all of you is that the same management that is in charge of National Water, the success today, was in charge of National Water and was actually running things as middle management in 1993 when it was failing. So I always tell people the only difference was that they changed their mindsets, that they started practicing corporate governance. So to the people here that work, to the people that are interested in the bottom line, I want to opine with confidence and evidence that corporate governance directly impacts your bottom line and the success of your organization. So we need to look at now the directors, the heads. They say the fish starts rotting from the head. So if we want to make sure that the fish is operational, the head should be okay. So the directors of any institution have both statutory duties, which are steeped and stipulated in the law, and fiduciary duties, which are by virtue of the common law relationship between a principal and their agent. Common law because we practice English law. So what are the statutory duties of a director, for instance? These are many, and they're split into different sections, but I'll just basically say you have a duty to ensure compliance of the organization with statutory duty. You have a duty to ensure that you are complying with legal and contractual requirements. If you have contracts with your suppliers, you should pay them. You should obey the statutory requirements that set you up. You should ensure that if there are labor laws, you follow them. You have a duty to ensure good corporate governance principles. And you also have a duty to uphold your fiduciary duties. I'm going to enunciate on the fiduciary duties. I don't want to dwell so much into the statutory duties. They're well laid out in this presentation, which we will share with everyone, but I don't want to take a lot of time. But now you also have a duty to ensure, to understand your duties. As lawyers, we say ignorance of the law is no excuse. So please understand your duties. Please understand what the law says about your duties and understand the common law principles as well. So one of the key fiduciary duties that arise from the relationship of common law is the duty of care and skill. Board directors are expected to be careful in carrying out their responsibilities. They must be prudent. And in the past, in the law of torts, in our practice of law, the standard of duty of care, or the standard of judging whether someone is acting is acting responsibly, was the standard of the ordinary man. What would an ordinary man do? But in one of our famous cases in Uganda, government of Uganda versus Jamwa, Justice Katusi, because this is common law, Justice Katusi set a serious, powerful precedent about the level that we judge this duty of skill by. And he stated that the director must be prudent. And the standard of care now equated to the is now equated not just to an ordinary man, but to that expected of a knowledgeable and skilled person managing their own business. So you can see that the standard of care has risen. The standard you are measured to as a director has risen. We expect you to have the skill and the knowledge. So if you are a lawyer on a board, we do not expect that board to mess up legally. If you are an accountant on a board, we do not expect, but also, even if you're neither, we expect you to inform yourself. The boards are allowed to inform themselves, to get access to professional advice. And that's why organizations like the League of East African Directors exist, to strengthen your capacity to be skilled and knowledgeable in the execution of your work. Otherwise, the law will come knocking. You are supposed to, under the duty of care and skill, you're supposed to keep yourself informed. Make inquiries in the decisions. A board member should never say they did not know, You should keep abreast with the corporation's activities and affairs. You should exercise reasonable supervision and control. They say eyes on, hands off. But these days we also say, put your nose in. I think I had this at the lead convention last year. Every year we have a lead convention. You're invited to join and have these serious conversations that study the trends and standards and how they're growingly increasing. The next duty is the duty to act in good faith. This is a duty that requires of you loyalty. That means that you have to act in the interest of the company. Sometimes in Rotary International, sometimes because we are a huge network and we want to empower each other, sometimes the Rotary Club might get services from maybe Fiona Wall and her law firm or something, but I have to make sure that the services Fiona Wall is giving to Rotary International are equivalent or even better and even less priced than those outside in the market. There has to be an element of loyalty when you are giving services, even if they're from within. And this also affects family-led organizations. This affects organizations that have conglomerates, like maybe if you have like Ernst & Young, they might have a legal department. The legal department should give services to maybe the audit department that are, the best and at the best price. Why are we saying this? You have to be seen to be acting in the best interest. So whatever decision you make, you need to ensure that the best interest of the organization are paramount. The duty of fair dealing, this is almost the same as I told you, that if they're going to deal with you, you should be the best, The duty not to entrench. We've seen, the duty not to entrench is really to ensure that you're not trying to plant yourself into the organization, remove things like, some people want to be in the board, on the board for years and years and years, or they want to leave their children in the organization, or they want to put their friends to replace them on the board. Whenever you try to plant roots in an organization and you're not planning for proper succession, it's called entrenching. And entrenching causes a lot of conflict of interest and might actually impede your ability to make good decisions. So you have a duty not to entrench. You have a duty to disclose conflict of interest. And I'll spend a little more time here and state that conflict of interest is any financial or other interest which conflicts with the services you provide, because it would significantly impair your objectivity to create an unfair advantage for any person or organization. So as a director, what is that thing that might impede your ability to be objective about decision making? It is more than just individual bias. There must usually be an interest, which is usually financial or fiscal, that could influence an individual. And what we want to say here is that we're not saying conflict of interest shouldn't happen. We're saying it should be brought out in the open, dealt with, and cured. The board is not judged on whether conflict of interest arose. They're always judged on how they handled it. And if you're a board director and you come across a matter of conflict of interest, the first duty you have is to declare it. The second duty you have is to ensure that you've empowered your fellow directors to act on it. Don't manipulate them, because at the end of the day, for instance, let me give an example. If I'm sitting on the board and my daughter shows up, and we're doing an interview, I have a duty to report this issue that is my daughter. But the board might feel, oh, we're Fiona's friends. They might feel a bit uncomfortable and say, no, Fiona, sit in. I have a duty to to have the integrity to either refuse to score her or get out of the room, to enable my fellow board members to make an objective decision. It does not mean that the girl should be denied an opportunity to get a job, but my declaring this conflict and my taking myself out of that room makes sure that no one will debate this issue. But if I stay in the room, if I don't declare, if it is discovered later, it is going to cause serious problems. Now, we saw an example where there was a department in the NSSF report where there's a department where somebody, had hired a lot of relatives. Now, if the human resource had evidence that in the interviews, this person was not there, or he declared his interests, but these people passed on merit, then nothing would be wrong with those kinds of appointments. But we want to say that let's try as much as possible. If you have a conflict, declare it. If you can avoid it, please avoid it. And I've talked about Rotary International and its structures. And sometimes they're unique and intricate, and there are many stakeholders we work with, their interrelationships. So conflict will always arise. But what we are saying is, how will you deal with that conflict? Will you be transparent? Will you be accountable? Will you have integrity? Somebody said integrity is what you do when no one is looking. And at this point in time, ethics is a huge element in appointing board directors. It's also a huge element that's toppling a lot of board directors. So we need to think about our ethics when we're looking at the issue of conflict of interest. Contemporary trends, what is happening now is that because of the problems that are arising from stewardship, poor stewardship, governments have started enacting laws with greater corporate governance content. For instance, our Companies Act right now is really, really stringent. It's criminalizing a lot of, we have the anti-corruption court that is waiting for you. There's a lot of anti-money laundering laws. These ones are really governance issues. You have also the issue of the corporate governance bill, which is in Parliament. So there's a lot of legislation. Then corporate governance reporting has become a legal requirement. There are certain things you cannot do without filing returns, etc. Now you've seen that about 7 laws were passed in December last year by Parliament of Uganda that require you to declare beneficial ownership of any organization. Again, corporate governance to remove or declare conflicts. It has criminalized corporate misconduct. It has prescribed personal liability for certain infringements where they lift the veil. You can no longer hide behind the company. It emphasizes the role of an independent director. Independent directors are a sign that if they are the majority in your company, which is the best practice, they are a sign that there's a lot of objective decision making in your organization. And that's really a big plus. Development of binding codes of conduct and corporate governance committees. There are many international cases that have happened, but just to give you a couple of cases. Sorry, I was interrupted. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, we can hear you, but we know that there's a powerful interruption from your dad.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, so the South African broadcasting company, SABC, I think some of you know it. It will give you an example that...
President, have we lost Marion?
No, we are hearing her.
Okay. So SABC saw the resignation of board members due to shareholder or ministerial interference. In the NSSF issue, we saw the issues that were being raised about ministerial interference. But SABC has had about so many scandals, but one of the biggest scandals was that in a year that they made such gruesome losses, it's the year the board directors gave themselves bonuses. And just this
President,
alone
we seem not hear the presenter.
I can hear the presenter.
Amanya, you can confirm it's you who has the problem.
She's
can hear
listening to humble enough. I don't know what is happening to some.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we
hear
can.
you.
Okay, okay.
Amanda gave her heart, so he's hearing
So
from
in
the heart.
2014-15, the financial statements were reporting losses. At the same time, the CEO was giving himself huge bonuses, and he also gave some to the to the board. There are so many problems of entrenchment, where the minister changed the amendments of the memo to sort of give herself more authority. We talked about entrenchment earlier. This has caused a lot of problems. If you read about SABC, it's still bleeding up to now from that time. We have South African Airlines, which almost no longer exists. It's been a failure because of the interferences of the minister, because there was some conflict of interest. For those of you that followed these things, there were accusations that the then president, had appointed someone that he had a friendship with, but who was not necessarily qualified. So that test of skill was a problem. MTN Group, we saw the issue of MTN where they got a huge fine in Nigeria for non-compliance with the telecom regulations, especially on registering people, SIM cards. And their non-compliance in Nigeria was huge enough to cause problems in the head office in South Africa. And we had even board directors resigning. And this is the point where board directors are asked, do you resign? Do you stay to clean it up? What happens when there is such a mess? This shows you that even if you are in head office, you can be affected by what's happening in your country offices. You need to take interest in the governance issues of all your branches. I think we've also seen this with other companies.
Senior counsel,
in
you
Uganda,
have
for instance.
to summarize.
Yeah, I'm summarizing. Yeah.
Thank you.
So in Uganda, I think we saw what happened in the bank crisis. We saw what happened in the Bank of Uganda investigations. There were really corporate governance matters. You saw some people I'll show you here. Maybe I'll get one of the most famous ones, Martha Stewart, 20 years imprisonment. Martha Stewart owned her own company. She was bigger than life, but it was a public listed company, and she used insider information to clone stock. And because of that, you'd think that that's they say a victimless crime where you just create fake stock and then sell it off. But one of the things that happens is that once you are in the public arena, corporate governance will get you. So please ensure that you have integrity and you're practicing corporate governance. What are some of the things that exist in our law right now? Right now, actually, UBRA has raised the standard for trustees. As you had, I'm a trustee on Zamara, but now for you to qualify to be a trustee, for you to be an administrator of a fund, there are stringent laws now that are affecting us. But some of the penalties you can suffer, or you can receive criminal penalties, imprisonment. You've seen, you can get arrested. And as we've said, the law is a seatbelt. And what we are asking of ourselves is that as leaders, we need to be faithful to our mandate and our calling to serve our stakeholders. We need to be available to serve the organizations which we lead, meaning we need to equip ourselves daily to be worthy of the calling which we have received, and we need to be teachable, to keep learning. Let's embrace technology. Let's embrace new ways of doing things, because our environment is very, very brittle. It's unpredictable. And what we want to see is that we have our environment, our sustainability, our environmental issues, sustainability issues dealt with, and our governance on point. Thank you very much. I'll leave you with that message. Please be fact, faithful, available, teachable. Have a good morning.
Thank you very much, Senior Counsel, for giving us that amazing presentation on governance and how it can enrich Rotary International as we serve above self. May I call upon Rotarian Patience, who will guide us through the Q&A session.
Okay, thank you, President. Thank you, Fiona, for that elaborate discussion about corporate governance. Time is not on our side. We'll take just 2 hands and then close the session. Maybe Fiona can stay back for Chimeza. So we'll start with the CPA, Frederick Chibedi. Please shift.
Thank you very much. And President Fiona, thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. Fiona was president of the Law Society when I was president of the ICPAU. My question to you is, and I've seen this in many instances, that people who are directing or governing private entities seem to think that the law does not touch them. Is there anywhere in the law where you're running a private university, a private company, that when you run it badly, you'll be incriminated and you can have penalties within the law? That's my clarification I needed from you, Fiona.
Okay, thank you, Frederick. We'll take Peter Mukuru, then Fiona can respond.
Thank you very much, Moderator. Thank you very much, and thanks, Fiona. Mine is also related to Fredericks. You've listed the big cases, SBC, SABC, MTN, and so on, but mine hinges on integrity, which in your presentation, you've made a call on a personal individual coming out to ensure they're people of integrity. We see cases, if you quoted NSSF, where the board, for example, is getting medical and other benefits. We see boards, even national, are getting, cars for personal use and so on. How do you treat, before the law, how do you treat at company level such seemingly small, seemingly trivial, but cases that create a culture of entitlement and perhaps injure and offend the independence of a board member? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rotarians, Rotarian Frederica and Rotarian Peter. Those are very good questions. The corporate governance touches every aspect of our lives, and it also touches private businesses, more so because at some point you're going to want to get a loan, you're going to want to get equity, maybe equity financing. You're going to want to join LEAD and be a board member one day on a Fortune 500 company or something. And one of the things people are going to look at is your track record. How have you been handling yourself? I'll give you an example. There are people that have missed out on board appointments because every time a prestigious organization wants to give you money or invest in you or appoint you to a board, they're going to do due diligence. And this due diligence will go into your credit as an individual, your behavior. They're going to get character references, and more people are even going deeper than this. And that is why you have a lot of information being gathered by a lot of organizations that we work with. This is why banks insist on knowing your personal address. We are giving out information daily. So what you're doing in the dark is going to find you. It is very important to have personal integrity. Secondly, when it comes to issues like private schools or private organizations, we have examples. I think one very good example of the story of corporate governance for family-owned organizations is Crestform. I think we saw what happened with the fire, the lessons they learned from there. And I think I appreciate their CEO because she has now, grown and is a leading corporate governance, leader. And because of the experience, they were taking a lot for granted because they were a family-led organization and they didn't cover the basics like, making sure maybe they're properly insured or something like that. And then this big crisis happens, We have seen organizations which are doing very well, private organizations, whether schools. I think we saw what happened with the St. Lawrence schools, the scandal that came from there, and how that has sort of really destroyed the reputation of the school and where it was probably headed. So corporate governance speaks directly to your bottom line. Anything you have invested in personally, you need to put it upon yourself to make the organization outlast you, outlive you, be bigger than you. In fact, somebody said, if you, an effective CEO has to have you should not be the ceiling of the IQ in your organization. Your people should be better than you. That means you need to hire professionals. Your board needs to be people that are non-executive directors who can hold you accountable and bring in a certain set of skills that improves your provision. So for those organizations that are not doing the right thing, eventually the chickens come home to roost always. What I would say is if you're in a position of responsibility in any of those organizations, bring out these things, have them discussed. If your board does not understand what you're talking about and are trying to entrench and try, that is why we need organizations like LEAD to consistently train, to ensure that a board member like Mr. Japheth Kato is there, is a peer to my maybe board chair. And when I put them together in a room, in a training, they're going to have this conversation and inspire each other at a level where maybe a corporation secretary cannot. You might not be able to tell your board certain things as a CEO, but put them in spaces, put them where they're going to do a lot of peer learning, and you'll see that they'll unlearn some of the bad habits. But also, I think documenting your story consistently, trying to become maybe ISO certified, trying to get international certifications, they increase the level of your corporate governance compliance. So expose yourself to those outside audits. They're very, very important. They'll keep you they'll keep you knowing that, you know, the temperature is right or wrong. But I also wanted to recognize my board member from Lead to PhD, James Onyoin. Thank you so much for inviting me. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. Thank you, Fiona. We'll close it from there, but allow me to take one comment from the chat from Elizabeth Mary. Senior Counsel Fiona Wall, as one of your teachers, you make me super proud to be associated with you. Keep Cavendish University Uganda flag flying even higher. Top-notch engagement today. Bravo. Dr. Onyoin, please come in and give a vote of thanks, and then you have the statistics and final toast. Thank you. Rotarian James, are you on call?
I think he's mesmerized by the presentation.
Thank you. No, I was not allowed to open my microphone, and still I'm not allowed to open my video. Maybe somebody can allow me on pause. That was the problem. But otherwise, I want to say thank you so much. This has been really, really enlightening, insightful. I'm sure we have all learned something. I look forward to, you know, members putting these things into practice, because certainly you have done the preaching part of it. I think the remaining part is for Frederick Chibedi to put these things into practice, and also to join a League of East African Directors.
Oh
and
my
all
God,
the
I'm already practicing, but I'm coming. I'm coming to join the league.
People like Peter Mukuru, your question shows.
That
one, be a member of
the
East African Directors.
CV is not good.
Okay, so Mr. President, allow me at this point to really move a vote of thanks to Senior Counsel Fiona Wall, and also to appreciate her for the work that she's doing at the League of East African Directors, where I'm a board member. This presentation has been very clear. I'm sure you all agree with me. We have something to do in every organization that we lead, including your home. You have to practice corporate governance even in your family. Thank you very much, Fiona. This has been very good, and we look forward to inviting you again. I was very happy that you never said no when I extended the invitation to you. Thank you very much. And Mr. President, I want to leave it at this point and ask Fiona to stay behind a bit so that we can discuss more of these things during the Chimeza. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Friends, just a few minutes to the close of our meeting, and then we shall go right into the Chimeza. Thank you for a befitting vote of thanks. We always appreciate your recommendations for guest speaker, their quality. Thank you. Over to you, Rotarian Issa. Please give us the statistics, summarize them, please. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Loud and clear, Issa. Come in.
Thank you. Thank you, President. Good morning, Rotarians and all guests, participants. Our statistics today We have over 170 participants, 30 Rotary clubs, and the Rotary clubs present include Bukoto, Bwebaja, Bweyogere, E-Club of Uganda, Kansanga, Chira, Chitante Chiwatule, Kampala Alibad, Kampala Morning Star, Kampala North, Kampala Springs, Kampala Sese Islands, Kampala Sunrise, Kololo, Chanja, Chengera Town, Lubowa, Lugogo Mango Tree, Machinye East, Manyango, Nakwero, Mbarara Mitiana, Muyenga, Sunset, Nakasero Central, Nakawa, Namasuba, Nsanji, Ntinda, and Sonde. Any club not mentioned, please indicate in the chat. We'll update our list. Thank you very much. Back to you, Mr. President.
Rotarian Isa Agabo. CMP Edith, give us the final toast. Thank you. CMP Edith, are you with us? CMP Edith.
Edith Mujisa.
Thank you, President. I had failed to mute for the very insightful presentation about corporate governance is a must in Rotary International by Fiona. I propose a toast to Rotary International.
Rotary the world over.
Rotary the world over.
Rotary the world over.
President, I have shared with you my email. Please share with me the presentation. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Shared the link to the YouTube version of this presentation. You can right away get access to this. Friends, Ramadan Mubarak, Ramadan Karim, to the Muslim fraternity, we wish you a great period of fasting, a period of renewal as you start your period of fasting. Thank you. Friends, thank you for joining us today. Our meeting is over and we are moving over into the Chimeza session right away. Rotarian Patience, are you still with us?
I am.
Great. Don't know how many minutes our senior counsel is giving us at the Chimeza session. Thank you.
Okay, let me see if I can pick some comments from the chat room. Thank you so much, Fiona. That was incredibly insightful. There were a lot of points, good points to take home. As we have hands, oh, we have one. Okay, Rotarian Mujisa, please unmute and ask.
Thank you, moderator. Siona gave an example of NSSF, of a person they questioned about bringing relatives in the organization. I have seen it even in the water. One director bringing about 15 members of her family, including her son. They are working in the same office, and even in Revenue Authority. And in the past, even a husband and wife used not to work in the same office. But these days we are seeing it everywhere. Is it really proper? Sion, thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't have that evidence or that information, but what I'll say is that I've said that conflict of interest will always happen. If you have an organization like National Water or NSSF that hire 5,000 Ugandans, the chances of you being related to one or two or three of those people are very high. Now, that's why we're saying that sometimes the process of how you do this matters. If you are in the room during the interviews, first of all, that's a problem. Second of all, if you do not declare these things at the time they're being hired, so that because you see, there's what we call corrective responsibility. if the board is going to wake up one day and find that you have 15 staff under you and all of them are your relatives, it's going to be a problem for the board. But it would have been better if you had declared, so that you equip them, so that if they're going to hang, they hang together when they know that they're going to hang. The unfair bit is when you do not declare. So increasingly, these things cause problems. There are things that can even be challenged in the law because of the conflict. I've told you, it's been so many things have been criminalized. But one of the things you do to absolve yourself: 1, declare; 2, do not be in the room; 3, there are best practices. Like if you're in a big organization like National Water and you find that there's 2 relatives, do not have them working in the same department. In the past, National Water used to say, we had a rule that spouses, if you get married within the organization, you cannot stay. One of you has to leave. But eventually it became so difficult because people spend 3/4 of their time in the organization. So if they marry each other, one of the things now they do is you have to work in different areas, different divisions, different departments. Why? Because they don't want to lose the intellectual capital, or just because people have gotten married or because people have now gotten divorced or something like that. But they're also trying to ensure that decisions for the organization are not affected by these relationships. So they'll separate you. But I have told you, these organizations are led by human beings. Personal integrity is the basis of corporate integrity. So if people have questionable integrity at the personal level, they will do things that eventually will compromise the integrity of the whole organization. This will always happen, Rotarian Edith. But what we are, I think that was, Rotarian Mugwisa, what we are saying is, can we emphasize the importance of realizing that there's collective responsibility and what we do affects the bottom line of these organizations that feed us. And sometimes, by the way, you can, someone made a very brilliant comment in the chat that sometimes these difficult conversations, use the internal auditors and external auditors to raise them, as when they're raised in the management letter. Sometimes it causes a bigger stink, so that you don't wait for a parliamentary committee to bring them out.
Thank you, Fiona. We'll take one last one from Epi Galova. Your hand is up.
Thanks, Kampala Daybreak. Thanks, Fiona Wall. Members, you should also recognize she's a past president of Uganda Law Society, where she served, I think, 2 terms very diligently and gave shining colors to the women agenda, really. Women as very good managers. Thanks for bringing up National Water and Sewage Corporation as an example in corporate governance. And I really like the fact that you observed that middle management later became top management, but now we are performing at a different level. I also want to highlight the fact that we have the principle of dualism. And I think you've really dissected that contradictory issue in management, in leadership. What is called maybe nepotism, conflict of interest. You really dissected given us a lot of knowledge how it can be handled. But dualism means that they give with one hand and take out with the other. You're looking at governments. George Bush Sr. became president, his son became president. Look at the Kennedy family. There's only so much you can do, because some people may be gifted, whether genetically or by other circumstances, maybe capital, money, exposure. So certain people will be better than others. I listened to the argument, the NSSF probe at Parliament. I mean, it can be neither here nor there, especially if they use the parameters you've mentioned to us. But the fact is, we have the principle of dualism. At times, at the very top level, we are saying this, the law says this, but at the very top level, the other is happening. I'm sure we all know which examples we can allude to. Otherwise, thank you very much. Have a great day. Thank you, Fiona, and God bless you in your undertaking.
Thank you so much, Epi Golova.
From Rotary Club,
Thank you so much, Epi
Mango
Golova.
Tree.
Rotary Club of Lugogo Mango Tree. Architect
Mango
Golova Edward.
Thank you so much, Architect
Okay.
Golova. It's been humbling listening to you. Thank you very much. And you're extremely right about dualism. That's why I said we deal in imperfect spaces with imperfect humans. Certain things are going to happen. Some people sometimes are more equal than others. But again, the least we can do is let the systems work. And I think this is where human resource managers also come in, very key. Auditors come in, risk managers come in, legal managers and corporation secretaries come in. All these people's necks are going to hang when things go wrong. So let's always be the gatemen for our little areas of influence to make sure these things, these vices don't continue. My former boss, Rotarian Ruth Kanyaruju, is online. Please allow her to speak. Her hand is up.
Sure. Rotarian Ruth, please come in. She'll be the last one.
Yes, thank you so much, Rotarian Fiona, for doing such justice to the topic. Corporate governance is my niche, and I'm so happy when you really give it the justice it deserved. Thank you so much, because you really presented it so well. And thank you so much for accepting to come, honoring our invitation to come and talk to us. You've done it so well. And if I can share something about national water, you really brought it so well. I know that there are many people who have their children there, but those people entered there on merit. At least me, I was on the board for 2 terms, and I saw it happening. Sincerely, those of you who don't know much about National Water is a solid organization that observes a lot of corporate governance. I'm telling you, I was there for 7 years, but by the time I left after those 7 years without even knowing who the suppliers are, would sit and give contracts of billions and billions of dollars, euros, and I'd never known those contractors. That shows the level of good corporate governance in that organization. I know that, of course, there will be issues here and there, but by and large, this is an organization that has tried to observe corporate governance. And I pray that other organizations can follow suit, can really copy the example of National Water. I've seen things happening in the papers about NSSF, about what, but of course, you know, these organizations are organizations of so huge numbers of employees and other interested parties. Somehow they will mess the boards up, but board members and directors on call, I encourage you to always put up your feet and stand for the right of what you believe. It is always good to remain a person of integrity, whatever the cost. So thank you, Fiona. And I'm very proud that you found me. You can bear me witness. We did a good job really in National Water. And I pray that wherever we go, we shall continue doing a good job. And I encourage fellow directors, wherever you are, just stand for to do the right thing, and time will tell what you've contributed. Thank you very, very much. And to all of you, don't worry, I'm going to share the presentations on the common platform, because many people have given their emails and others have not, so I'll just put it on the common platform and for the benefit of everyone. Thank you very much. God bless you all.
I also wanted to mention that Ruth is a good member of the League of East African Directors.
Thank you.
Yes, she is. Thank you so much, Rotarian Ruth. Very humbled. We also have our our coordinator lead, Mr. Ivan Kalema. He's present. Thank you so much. And now I'm done talking. Good morning.
Okay, thank you,
Right.
Rotarian Fiona. I think we are done
Please,
here.
Fiona,
President,
share the presentation with me, and then I can give it
Can
to
you
other
allow me to
members. Thank you
salute
so
my
much.
president? My
oh,
president,
please
Fiona.
go ahead.
Yes, I'm going to send it ASAP.
Rotarian Fiona, your colleague was saluting you.
I
Jameson
was saluting
Karemani.
my president. She's no longer knowing us. She left. She's
I'm
enjoying in the world.
here. I'm here, Council Oime. I'm so humbled to see you. I saw your comments. I'm sorry I wasn't able to say
This
anything
is
here.
Karemani, not Oine.
Oh, okay. Hello, Council Karamati.
How are you?
Thank you.
I'm okay.
President, allow me to
Thank
sign
you
out.
for a good presentation and everything you are doing.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Amazing.
God bless everyone.
Okay,
Right.
thank you, Council Fiona, for staying back for Chimeza. Thank you, guys, and I'm out.
Pesh, thank you so much for good coordination. Proud of you.
Thank you, Rotarian Road. Thank you, bye. Have a nice day.
Thank you and bye-bye. Enjoy your classification.